Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your co-host, Shaq. We're going to be talking UFC Fight Island, Calvin Kattar versus Dan Ige. And Shaq, it's going down this Wednesday night, a featherweight showdown in the main event. Both men looking to get one step closer to a title shot.
Yeah, this is a great matchup. You know, Calvin Kattar, after his last fight, man, that vicious KO over Jeremy Stephens, I think he instantly became a fan favorite. I think a lot of people are saying that he's got the best hands in the UFC possibly. And, you know, Dan Ige, man, he's been counted out a lot, but, man, he's, you know, strung together, 7 wins in a row. Just beat Edson Barboza. So, man, it's going to be a really good fight, man. Ige, he seems like he's in a very, dark mental place. And Calvin, we know what Calvin brings to the table, man. This guy always comes to show up. He always comes to fight. So the winner of this fight, man, is going to be able to throw his name, up there with the big boys like, Zombie, Ortega, et cetera. So I'm excited.
Man, it's going to be a hell of a main event for sure. There's a good chance someone gets finished. And before we break down this card start to finish, just got to let them know to go to bestfightpicks.com. Use that promo code 2020 for 20% off the VIPs. Use my promo code Dan25 for 25% any of my plays, or Shaq's code Shaq50 for 50% off any of his packages. Coming off a winning weekend at UFC 251 and looking to continue it here. And Shaq, let's get right down to business, because first up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Jack Shore. He's 12-0, and Aaron Headkicks Phillips is 12-3. Currently, they got Jack Shore minus 700. The comeback on Aaron Phillips is plus 500. Well, Shaq, I remember when I heard about Dustin Poirier's old teammate from back in Louisiana, Aaron Headkicks Phillips, and he was supposed to fight Sam Sicilia. And I was like, hey, Aaron, let's just go out there and head kick Sam Sicilia. When Sam Sicilia looks like a D1 wrestler against you, that's when you know there's an issue. But look, the kid went back to the regional scene, put in some work, even beat our good friend Devontae Sewell, which was a very controversial fight, but he got the dub. Now he's back in the UFC, and he's taking on the Welsh phenom, Jack Shore. This is a guy in Jack Shore who I'm super high on. He doesn't waste any time out there. He knows where his strengths lie, and I think it's going to be one back take. The fight will be over shortly after. I'm going Jack Shore by submission here, Shaq.
Aaron Phillips' first UFC stint, he wasn't able to stuff a takedown to save his life, and it's gotten a little better, but I mean, even in his recent fights, he's still getting taken down, so you already know what the deal is here. Jack Shore is about to come out here and run this guy through the series, and put on a show for the fans back home in Wales, man. Jack Shore, I want to see him against some more top flight competition later down the line, but I think this is a good fight for him to come get a second UFC finish for sure.
Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Diana Belbita, she's 13-5, and Liana Jojua is 7-3. Currently, they got Diana Belbita minus 165. The comeback on Liana Jojua is plus 145. Well, Shaq, I know you remember vividly the kind of epic stunt that Liana Jojua pulled in her last fight. Now she's dropping a weight class. You think that's going to make any difference here against Belbita?
Jojua definitely not impressed, man. She hasn't really fought anybody on her local scene. Even on her local scene fight, she was kind of pulling similar stunts to, what she did against Moraes. And although Belbita's been submitted, I think, 3-4 times, I definitely think Belbita's the tougher chick. Both of them are young girls, but Jojua just seems like, she's more of the IG model type, more than a fighter. So, I'm going to go with Belbita here. I think she's tougher. I think she had a decent showing against McCann. At least she went the distance. She survived some bad spots, as where we've seen what happens when you put Jojua in some bad spots. And that was against a complete cannon, Sarah, my girl Moraes. So, got to go with Belbita here. It could. I honestly don't think it's going to be one of these. I just have a feeling Jojua is the IG model type that can't really fight. So I'm going to go with Belbita.
When Sarah Moraes goes out there and puts on an MMA clinic against you, I'm talking she's feeling comfortable boxing you up. She's taking you down at will, and then she's finishing you. That's all I need to see. And I will say one thing, little disclaimer, Jojua's best move is her armbar off her back, and Belbita has been tapped with arm bars before. She got finished in the first round by Ariane Lipsky, and all the fighters she's beat either have losing records or have had less than 5 pro fights. But aside from that, I still feel like she showed enough toughness in her Molly McCann fight that she can go out here, keep this fight standing, piece apart Jojua, and hopefully not get caught in that fluke sub. So I'm going to go with Belbita as well. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a matchup between Jared Flash Gordon, he's 15-4, and Chris Fishgold is 18-3. Currently, they got Jared Gordon -145. The comeback on Chris Fishgold is +125. Shaq, this is an interesting fight because I feel like the early going favors Fishgold and the later going favors Jared Gordon. Who do you think is going to get it in their realm and get this dub?
Man, this is a great matchup, man. Both these guys are hungry. Both these guys haven't had the best run as of lately. You know, Gordon, he's kind of been taking some fights where, I mean, the 3 guys he lost to were studs, though. You know, Carlos Diego, Neto BJJ, and Charles Oliveira. And then you got Fishy on the other hand, who was this big time, you know, Cage Warriors champ coming in, and you know he's 1-2. Also fought some tough competition. Only 2 losses are to Macwan and Calvin. So this is you got 2 hungry dogs in here looking to keep their spot on the roster. I think, yeah, like you said, Fishgold, he does have the power early, but to be honest, I feel like Fishgold lacks composure big time, man. I feel like Fishgold just, I think he had a padded record in that Cage Warrior scene, man. I think that he came in 15-1 or 16-1, whatever it was. But the competition level, man, it really wasn't that impressive in my opinion. And I saw him in some bad spots on the local scene as well. His fight with Tamor, the shit Tamor. Luckily, Tamor can't grapple, but there were some sketchy moments in that fight as well. And in the Macwan fight, he landed some good inside low kicks, but he's this black belt, and he got tapped out. So I feel like Gordon, honestly, is a liability to get KO'd, and his chin is definitely a big factor. But other than that, I honestly feel like Gordon's the better fighter here. I feel like he can grapple, even though he's also had his mistakes on the mat. But he did, it was against Neto BJJ Silva, and where he almost got his knee torn off there, or I know Moret and him went back and forth, but I feel like he's honestly, if the fight can settle down, the smarter fighter. I feel like he can, be a little bit more consistent if they grapple on the mat, maybe get the better of the position. He's also a good grappler himself. It's just a matter of Gordon's chin. And if he just doesn't do anything stupid, because he's had some good moments, man. He's won rounds against Neto and some other guys, man. But I feel like he's the more composed fighter if things can settle down. So I'm gonna go with him for the win. Fishgold, just unless he gets a quick knockout, I have a hard time believing that he's gonna keep it together for 15 minutes.
Yeah, look, one guy's got an extremely questionable chin. The other guy, his heart is in question. And it's a situation where Chris Fishgold's got to come out and knock him out in the first round and a half, or he's going to gas out and get teed off on. The volume difference is huge. And both these guys are guys that we look to fade, especially Jared Gordon, but it's just that Fishgold ain't the guy. And I heard an interview with Fishgold. I don't like his mindset, man. He was talking about how he said, I'd rather lose an exciting fight than win a boring one. And yeah, as a fan, that's great. Awesome. Go out there and, be exciting. But as a betting man, I can't bet on someone or trust someone that, would rather lose an exciting fight than win a boring one. I'm all about winning by any means necessary. So I think it's first round or bust for Chris Fishgold. And after that, Jared's probably going to take over. But would it surprise me if Chris got him out of there? No, even though Chris only has, 2 knockouts in 22 pro fights. But Jared really has no chin, and he's cutting to 45. And interestingly enough, Fishgold's the one that missed weight today by 4 pounds or so. So we'll have to see what happens, but I'm going to lean with Jared Gordon to kind of take over in the second half of the fight. Now, next up in the light heavyweight division, we got a matchup between the former Cage Warriors light heavyweight champion, Modestas Bukauskas, he's 10-2, and Andreas Michelidis is 12-3. Currently, they got Modestas Bukauskas -210. The comeback on Andreas Michelidis is +175. Well, this is an interesting fight, Shaq, because Modestas Bukauskas, he kind of has a bit of that karate style, and you start to slow down on a guy like that, that's when he can get off on his strikes. It's just that his takedown defense is horrendous, but he kind of has one of those, like, he's one of these tall men that has kind of that Gumby thing going on where, like, you take him down easily, but he'll pop back up. He'll make you work over and over again, and then when you're gassed out, that's when he starts to do his karate combos. And Andreas Michelidis, he goes super hard in that first round. Look, the guy's normally a middleweight. He's fighting at light heavyweight this time, but in that first round, he's very dangerous. But after the first round, he starts to slow down a bit. And, you know, both these guys have knocked guys out with spin kicks and stuff like that. I would say that Modestas is probably the more fundamentally sound guy here, and the longer the fight goes, it definitely edges him. It definitely favors him just because Andreas Michelidis goes so hard early that he's got nothing left in the second and third rounds. And it's funny, I watched one of Andreas Michelidis' fights against a Russian. So, Shaq, listen to this shit. He knocks out a Russian with a spinning head kick, and, you know, the guy's knocked out. The ref stops the fight. He's celebrating. But, you know, a couple of the politicians sitting in the front row were like, nah, restart that shit. So they restart the fight. He goes out there and knocks the guy out again. So, you know, he's experienced fighting in these big shows overseas. But the thing is, I just don't like how he looks when fights go past round one. So I think the early going is going to be sketch. Andreas might drop him. Andreas might take him down. But if Andreas can't get him out of there, I think Modestas is going to come back and knock him out in the second or third round. So I'm going to go with the favorite, Modestas Bukauskas here.
Yeah, man, I agree 100%. I kind of see Andreas coming out here, like you said, possibly getting a knockdown. So if he can get the finish, you know, I don't want to say it would be shocking, but yeah, I like the karate style, the point attacks from Modestas, you know, throughout the course of the 15 minutes. So I'll take him for the win.
Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a showdown between Ricardo Ramos, he's 14-2, and Lerone Murphy is 8-0-1. Currently, they got Ricardo Ramos minus 160. The comeback on Lerone Murphy is plus 140. Well, Shaq, obviously, Ricardo Ramos is a guy that's paid his dues. I mean, I know you remember back when he fought on that show in the regional scene and Dana White sitting front row looking to sign this young kid, and Ricardo Ramos goes out there and gets choked out in the first round. And, you know, for a young guy, like, we've seen other people who, you know, were undefeated. They get finished in the first round. They never come back ever the same. I know you know who I'm talking about. One of Georgia's top prospects, when he was undefeated, got knocked out on that big show. He never came back. But that's not the case with Ricardo Ramos. Ricardo Ramos put his head down, he grinded, and he can overcome adversity. The kid's only 24 years old. I'm so impressed with him, but I got to tell you what, this kid Lerone Murphy, you know, in his regional footage, I was like, yeah, Zubaira Tukhugov was about to run through this guy, and Lerone Murphy got to a draw with Zubaira Tukhugov in Abu Dhabi. Now he makes his return to Abu Dhabi. How you seeing this featherweight showdown going?
Man, this is a great matchup because, like you said, man, Lerone Murphy prior to UFC, I was thinking, you know, he ain't all that. He hasn't fought any, you know, blah blah blase blase. But man, he impressed me against Tukhugov, man. I don't want to say he won the last two rounds, but I mean, I'd say for 2 rounds he fought on a very somewhat even level. The only issue was that we know that Lerone Murphy's only a blue belt on the mat, and we know that in that fight that he got taken down a bunch. Other than that, though, he showed he had, you know, some good striking. It was very sharp. You know, he played things very safe, and he had a good defensive style, even though he did get dropped in that first round. But man, you know, to be 8-0 in Abu Dhabi against, you know, Tukhugov, the fact that he performed that way the last 2 rounds was very impressive. It's just a matter of can he perform like that again, you know, against another tough guy. And Ramos is a guy where, you know, there's been a lot of high expectations on him from the beginning, and he's done a somewhat good job, man. He's still very young, and we know that his jiu-jitsu, you know, at least where Tukhugov is good at the wrestling, the ability to get the submission is going to be much more of a issue for Lerone this time. You know, I know he got taken down a bunch, but against a guy like Ramos, this guy's going to look to hop around to the back and get that rear naked choke. So he's going to have to be on point. I just don't have enough faith in his grappling ability yet, but from a betting perspective, I do respect his skills enough to pass on Ramos at that minus 160, you know, or wherever it is. I think Leron Murphy's a tough dude. It seems like he gets better through, as the fight goes on. And Ramos has slowed down in the past. We have seen him, have rounds where he's fatigued, like against Kyung Ho Kang or Tanaka back in the day. If he uses too much energy on the mat, and Leron can actually get out of a couple of grappling exchanges. But I think most likely what happens is Ramos gets him down and probably gets a sub. But man, it's gonna be tough. I wouldn't be shocked if Leroy even pulled out the win. But I think it could be a good fight.
Yeah, it's a fantastic featherweight showdown. And I'm so glad that Ricardo Ramos moved up to 145 pounds. I really feel like he was killing himself to make bantamweight. And I mean, he's always had these flashes of brilliance, but now that he's getting more cage time in there. And I mean, again, like I said earlier, the kid's only 24 years old. He's just a kid, Shaq, and he already knows what it means to overcome adversity. He knows what it's like to get embarrassed more than once and then come back and brush it off like nothing happened. So I like this guy a lot, but with Leron Murphy, you can't ignore what happened in his UFC debut. And yeah, I mean, you can look at that as a double-edged sword. He did get taken down a bunch, but to have the composure to arguably come back and win the last 2 rounds in those circumstances against that opponent, that's very respectable. And if Ricardo Ramos, blows the load early, yeah, Leron Murphy can definitely come back. It's just that stylistically, I feel like Ricardo can get him down, can take the back, and potentially finish this fight. So I'm going to go with Ricardo Ramos as well. Now, next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between John, the White Mike Tyson Phillips. He's 22-9, and Khamzat Chimaev is 6-0. Currently, they got Khamzat Chimaev minus 335. The comeback on John Phillips is plus 275. Well, Shaq, I mean, we already know the deal with John Phillips. He's got like over 20 first-round knockouts. I mean, in that first round, if you stand and bang with John Phillips, there's a good chance that your head's getting knocked out into the 5th row. But with this kid, Khamzat Chimaev, now, someone let me know where he's from. I'm guessing he's Russian. It says that he's from Sweden. Like, I know he trains at All Stars with Gustafsson and Latifi and all those guys. But was he born in Russia? Someone let me know, because, I mean, he looks Russian. His last name is Russian. He fights like a Russian. I like this kid Khamzat a lot. It's just that, he's only 6-0, so it's like he still needs a lot of seasoning, but from what I've seen from him, he picks guys up, walks them across the cage like Matt Hughes, slams them. And if he comes out there and does that against Phillips, he's probably going to win. It's just that, just looking at it on paper, if you get a plus 275 on John Phillips against some random 6-0 guy, yeah, you might roll the dice and see if you can knock him out. But from what I've seen from Khamzat, he's legit. And Shaq, you remember that kid, Sidney Wheeler, how we were talking about how, man, he made a big career mistake by going over and fighting all those Russians? Well, Khamzat Chimaev was one of the Russians that finished Sid Wheeler in the first round. Actually made him tap to strikes in under a minute, which was like, damn, that was crazy. But yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of Phillips. I like watching him fight a lot. It's just I don't trust the ground game. And if Khamzat plays to his strengths here, he should come out and win. But again, like I said, if he tries to stand and bang with John Phillips, he will be knocked unconscious inside 1 round. He seems smarter than me. He seems smarter to me than that. So I'm going to go with Khamzat to either get a decision or a submission here.
Yeah, Khamzat. What Khamzat is that how you say it? Khamzat or Khamzat? Yeah, Khamzat. Like you said, very green in the sport, only 6 fights. But I will say in those 6 fights, he has been somewhat tested. He fought Sid Wheeler. He fought another 8-0 guy, and he fought a few good guys. So it's not like one of these things where he's 6-0 and he's fought Ted Worthington and the snow cone guy out the stands. But and he does go for the takedown. So immediately right there, you're like, fuck. But his stand-up, it seemed like it was actually improving to me, like from the first few fights that I watched compared to the last one. I saw him knock out a guy with the uppercut. And, his other fights, he just seemed to press with the takedowns. And that's probably the worst style for Phillips. I mean, Phillips has given up a bevy of takedowns in the UFC to Charles Byrd, Kevin Holland, and some of the takedowns are really bad too. And when he got down there, he really had no answer. And Khamzat has very good ground and pound as well. So if Khamzat plays this safe, he should get the win here. But from a betting perspective, at the line that it is now, minus 330 something, I don't think there's any value. You don't really know too much about this guy. Yeah, he's got Ali and all these guys backing him. So more than likely he comes out here and gets the win. But you never know, man. A lot of times, people want to anoint these guys the next best thing when they really haven't done shit. So, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'll take him for the win. He'll probably get the takedowns here and get a ground and pound stoppage.
Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got the return of the best knockout artist at welterweight, Abdul Razak Alhassan. He's 10-1, and he's welcoming the newcomer, Mounir Lazzez, who's 9-1. Currently, they got Abdul Razak Alhassan minus 310. The comeback on Mounir Lazzez is plus 255. Well, Shaq, I mean, they know how we feel about Razak. I would never bet against Razak no matter who he fought, because that guy can literally touch anyone in the welterweight division, and they might go night-night, and I know he's got a lot of pent-up aggression to let out here. It's just that this kid, Mounir Lazzez, is no slouch at all. I was pleasantly surprised with what I saw on tape. I was pretty impressed. The kid is long for the weight class. He's a sniper. He can knock people out in vicious fashion. It's just that he's got to fight Abdul Razak Alhassan in his debut. You think the newcomer can rise to the occasion, or is this Razak's night to come out here and remind everyone why he's one of the most scariest knockout artists at 170 pounds?
Yeah, I'm interested to see because, Razak, he's, knocked out guys like Nico Price before in less than a minute. So we know what type of caliber fighter. But at some other times, man, we have seen him go in there and be reckless and, put himself in danger for the knockout. And if he's not on point, I mean, I know he missed weight, but I'm assuming, that's due to the quarantine. But yeah, this guy Mounir, I definitely seen him get clipped with some big punches. But man, I do have a feeling that he might be one of these guys that can take like a vicious KO blow to the head, no problem, and still stay in there. But Razak Alhassan, that's a tough task for your debut. So I definitely got to go with Razak. But kind of similar to Khamzat, I definitely think Razak's a lock. It's just he's been off for a little bit. He missed weight. Not that the missing weight thing is a big red flag. It's just his style is very banking on the first round knockout. So, I'll take him for the win, but I'm interested to see how Mounir looks from here on out.
Yeah, look, Mounir Lazzez is going to have a very bright future in the UFC. He's going to go on to knock out a lot of people. It's just that this is kind of a rude welcoming to the UFC. Now, I'm not saying he can't get it done. Like you said, we've seen Razak get rocked at times. It's just that I'm not convinced that Mounir can take the shots that Razak throws. Not because Mounir's got a bad chin, not at all. More so just Razak has, in my opinion, the best knockout power in the whole welterweight division. So that's really all it is for me. And, shout out to my boy Will Martin. He told me that he was at the fight between Razak and Charlie Ward in Belfast. And, I think it was like first fight of the night or one of the first fights on the prelims. And he said that Razak's punches literally sounded like gunshots in the arena. Like, that's how hard this dude hits. And, we already know the deal, man. His last fight against Nico Price, you and I actually got inside info that he was dealing with some shit and that he couldn't get the best training camp and that he only had one round of cardio in him, and he still goes out there and knocks out Nico Price in under a minute. So him missing weight here, I'm not going to use that as a red flag because I was told, by some of my friends in Texas that, hey, Razak came into this camp a little bit heavy. He's been dealing with some shit, but the power never leaves, and I think he's going to come out here with a serious ferocity. I think he's going to go after Mounir Lazzez until he either knocks him out or until he gets knocked out. Someone is going to sleep in this fight. I'm going to say Abdul Razak Alhassan wins by first-round knockout here. Now, next up in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Molly McCann, she's 10-2, and Taila Santos is 15-1. Currently, they got Molly McCann minus 125. The comeback on Taila Santos is plus 105. Well, Shaq, odds makers open Molly McCann minus 300 in this spot. Now it's relatively a pick-em with a slight lean on Molly. And look, the thing with Taila is, she did do her thing on a Contender Series. She did have kind of a technical Muay Thai performance. But then it's like, hey, why don't we give you the weakest opponent on the roster in Brazil? Here's Mirella Barella. Go ahead and tee off on her. And it's like, when you're hesitant against Mara Romero Barella and like you're her one win and this and that was sketchy, man. Especially that third round when they stood up the entire third round. And it's like, okay, okay, Taila, go ahead and tee off on her. And she refused to do anything. So I'm just saying that if you're not coming here with some serious intensity against Molly McCann, you will be broken. So can we expect a better Taila Santos this time around, Shaq?
Man, I'm glad you asked that, man. I got a lot to say about this fight. I feel like Taila Santos. I think there's a chance she was a complete fraud, bro. I think that she had that 14-0 record coming into Contender Series, and a lot of the female Brazilian MMA, man, it's really sloppy. A lot of padded records. I mean, you look at her record. I mean, she fought nobody, to be honest. Then the Contender Series chick. I mean, she won that fight with a jab and a low kick. There really wasn't too many aspects in that fight. The chick she fought was kind of, it was like she was fighting a Vanessa Mello. You come out there and you touch the girl up and that's it. But man, I know she had a win over Marina Rodriguez in Muay Thai, and like you said, Mara Barella. What's to be scared? What's to be hesitant with Mara Barella? It's like she's harmless, but I feel like she's that 15-0, 15-1 record is not really indicative of where Taila Santos is really at. Half of those fights were against soccer moms, driving the Odyssey van, down the street, man. It's not and now she's in here with Meatball McCann, who, when we talk about intensity levels, is just on a completely different level than Mara Barella. Skill level is on a completely different level than Mara Barella, man. So I think that Taila Santos is possibly swimming with some sharks that she's not ready for, man. That the Mara Barella fight, what was so weird about it was it seemed like she was more concerned about fixing her uniform than actually fighting. Like every second she got, she was fixing her shorts, her bra. Like it was like, wait, are you in a fashion show or are you trying to actually fight? And she was just getting pushed up against the fence for significant amounts of time. When Mara Barella got on top of her, she had no answer. The third round, she actually is on the feet, and Mara Barella's literally out here, shadow boxing, and you're still not pulling the trigger. I think that I don't think she's ready for this level. And when you look at Meatball McCann, on the other hand, man, this girl has definitely changed my opinion over, around the last year or so, man, because she was talking, that big game before the Jillian Robertson fight, saying she was going to do this and do that. And, she got embarrassed. She got tapped out unconscious in England. And then she came back, man, against Priscilla Cachoeira. And those first 2 rounds, man, she put on quite the performance, showed her skills on the mat, her improved skills on the mat from the Robertson fight. Then she takes that against Lipsky, where I bet her at I think she was plus 245 against Lipsky down there in Greenville, and absolutely, put on the clinic, man, showed the footwork, the boxing. And I think as far as how these girls match up, I think Molly McCann's got better boxing. I think she's got better jiu-jitsu, better wrestling. I feel like she's more intense, better mindset. And I feel like Taila Santos, yeah, she's got a good athletic body. When you look at her, you're like, damn, this girl, is tall, she's ripped. But I don't think she has it up here, and I don't think she has it here. And I know Molly McCann's got that, so I'm going to take her for the win. And I think it's going to be a dominant win, man. I think if they get on the mat, I feel like you might see Molly McCann, really have her way with her. And I think on the feet, she can have her way with her as well. McCann's got some very underrated footwork, so I got Meatball Molly for the win.
I mean, dude, when you look at some of these numbers from that Barella fight, it's so alarming to a point. It's like, you know how many strikes Taila Santos landed in the first round? 2 strikes. You know how many strikes Taila Santos landed in the second round? 9 strikes. And in the third round, Barella literally lands 12 strikes. They stay standing the entire time. You have a Barella that's completely scared to throw. I mean, look, going into that fight, we were like, oh, you're giving me an undefeated Muay Thai phenom against Marella Barella, who's been knocked out 5 times in women's MMA. Like, yeah, duh. And then the girl's scared of Marella Barella, like the weakest possible opponent you can get. Like, dude, that does not sit well with me. And it's like, you can blame it on UFC debut. Like, I'm not going to blame it on UFC debut, because even if you go back to that Contender Series fight against a much lower level opponent, there were still moments there where you can see her get clinched up against the fence and you know someone better is going to have success. It's just like, you know, if Molly wants to come out here and trade leg kicks with her, then, you know, Taila's got a path to victory. But yeah, look, Molly might get tagged up a couple times, but Molly's going to push forward. She's going to get in her face. And if you get Taila Santos moving back, that completely shuts down her Muay Thai attack. And then you mix in the takedowns, which, by the way, Molly McCann has landed 9 takedowns in her last 3 fights. I mean, I think she's going to pick her up, slam her, and then once they're on the mat, I mean, I saw Morella Barella hold this girl down. What's going to happen when Molly McCann's on top of her, landing big elbows from mount? And I think it's going to be a dominant win as well. I was actually surprised by the matchmaking. And look, Vegas knows what's up. They open Molly a wide favorite here, but I think people are still riding this hype off Santos. But based off what I've seen, I just can't do it. I mean, we can talk about fading Molly down the line. And look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't think this is the spot, and I'm going Molly McCann here. Now, next up in the featherweight division, we got a showdown between 2 bantamweights because Jimmie Rivera, he's 22-4, and he's taking on Cody Stamann, who's 19-2. Currently, they got Jimmie Rivera -140. The comeback on Cody Stamann is +120. Shaq, this is a fight you and I have wanted to see for a very long time because back when Jimmie Rivera was the guy with the 20-1 record and, you know, he was the guy that was 1 fight away from a title shot, we were always saying that, you know, this young unranked kid, Cody Stamann, kind of reminds me of Jimmie Rivera a little bit. He's like a young Jimmie Rivera, but I don't feel like he's a young Jimmie Rivera anymore because I feel like Jimmie Rivera still has the same style he's had throughout his entire UFC career. Like, if you stand and bang in the pocket with Jimmie Rivera, he can win. I mean, Jimmie Rivera in the pocket can bang, but if you just mix it up on him, you play that outside game, if you switch stances on him, if you keep him guessing. Now, I know he's got good takedown defense, but you can still pin him up against the fence. If Cody Stamann comes out here and mixes things up, he's got a path to victory. It's just, do you think Cody Stamann's going to come out here and try to stand and bang in the pocket with Jimmie Rivera and give him the one chance he has to win?
Man, this is a great matchup. You know, I've had a feeling since the day Cody came into the UFC that this fight would eventually happen, and here it is. You know, Jimmie Rivera. I feel like you know, like you said a few years ago, yeah, he was that top 5 guy. He was, you know, he was that 20-1 guy that beat Faber, was a win away from the title fight. But to be honest, I feel like he has a very old school style, and I feel like the reason why he kind of hasn't progressed as much, even though he's losing to, you know, the top 3, Moraes, Sterling, and Peter Yan. The reason why I feel like he, you know, got completely dominated in those fights was just because, you know, he's failed to evolve his style where all those other guys have evolved. You know, I feel like Jimmie can't really fight and only fights in one stance. I feel like he's very tight. I feel like he, at this point in his career, is more of a slugger, you know, just swings big hooks. And this whole notion that he was winning against Peter Yan, I don't get it. But, you know, yeah, I mean, Jimmie Rivera is going to land some punches if you fight him. Like, you know, like it's going to be it's a fist fight. But he's under the impression that he won 14 minutes of that fight, which is delusional. But, you know, Cody Stamann, I feel like he doesn't get enough credit, man. I feel like a lot of people just think, you know, he's just a guy, but man, just because, you know, he's labeled, you know, quote unquote, a point fighter, you know, he, like my boy Volkanovski, you know, he's a point fighter. But I feel like Cody can pretty much do it all, man. He can wrestle guys. He can kick guys from the outside. He can fight in both stances. He can box in the pocket. He can, you know, his grappling, man, is on point as well. And I truly believe that, to be honest, he is the better overall fighter. And I feel like Cody Stamann is a very smart guy when it comes to the point game and the what we need to do to win this fight. I don't feel like there's much people at bantamweight better than Cody Stamann. I know it might not be that entertaining, but I mean, this guy finds a way, besides the Sterling fight, finds a way to make every fight, you know, not come down to the wire, you know, but he never gets dominated. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're not gonna get the better of Cody Stamann, for not even Song Yadong could. So I actually think Cody Stamann's a live underdog here. I don't feel like Jimmie Rivera's progressed. And another thing about Jimmie is, and I never want to blame teams and coaches and things like that. But just a thought, man. I know Tiger Showman and them are some good coaches, but man, I like when you hear some of the advice that they give Jimmie, it's like, it's kind of like very basic. Like that's why I feel like he hasn't progressed. It's like they're just telling him to, knock him out. It's just very basic stuff, and he's fighting guys on the high level of the sport. I feel like Cody Stamann's got a better fight IQ, but we'll see what happens. Jimmie's very explosive, good with his hands, but I feel like Cody Stamann has more ways to win, more aspects to his game, and I'll take him for the win.
Yeah, look, like I said, if you try to stand and bang with Jimmie Rivera in the pocket, that's going to give him his one chance he has to win. And, I agree with you. That whole, he won 14 minutes against Piotr Yan is complete bullshit. I think even if Piotr Yan didn't get those knockdowns, I still think Piotr Yan wins that fight, man. And, but Piotr Yan fights a different fight. Piotr Yan, walks you down the entire time, and he doesn't throw anything until he's ready to, which is not how Stamann fights. Stamann fights a different fight. Stamann's going to have Rivera guessing the whole time. He's going to switch stances. He's going to make Rivera chase him. He's going to pin him up against the fence, and he's going to make Rivera miss. And, from time to time, he'll have some pocket exchanges with Jimmie, but he's not going to do it the entire time, because you do that the entire time, that's the only path Jimmie has to victory. Jimmie's not going to wrestle. Jimmie doesn't have an outside game. Jimmie literally only has one way of fighting. It's the same way he's fought his entire career. It's just that now that his chin is kind of, diminishing a little bit. I mean, he's been knocked down 7 times in UFC competition, and people will say, but Cody Stamann doesn't hit hard. Cody Stamann was throwing some heaters against Brian Kelleher, and I'll tell you this right now, he hits Jimmie Rivera on that temple or on that chin, he will put him down, but I don't think it's going to be a knockout. I think that, look, Stamann's the hungrier guy. I think he's the smarter guy, and interestingly enough, statistically speaking, you look at the stats, not even just the fight footage, Cody's got him covered in literally every area except takedown defense, so that's a pretty good thing going on. I think that Cody Stamann's going to outpoint and outwork Jimmie Rivera on Wednesday night. Co-main event of the evening in the flyweight division, we got a matchup between Tim Elliott, he's 15-11, and Ryan Benoit is 10-6. Currently, they got Tim Elliott -125. The comeback on Ryan Benoit is +105. Shaq, Tim Elliott's back, and this is an interesting fight because you got a guy in Tim Elliott who's going to come out here trying to look for takedowns. You got Ryan Benoit, who we've said for the longest time is one of the hardest hitters in the flyweight division. And interestingly enough, Kamaru Usman, the welterweight champion, used to be Ryan Benoit's wrestling coach. I wish that Ryan's wrestling was a little bit better in the UFC, but he still seems to get back up when he gets taken down. You think he's going to come out here and hand Tim Elliott another loss?
Is it me, or is it like every Tim Elliott matchup, the opponent has shitty takedown defense? I mean, because Askarov had, suspect takedown defense. He still went out there, got the win. Roy Val's takedown defense was fucking garbage, and he still went out there and got the win. And now Benoit, So man, I feel like Tim Elliott. I heard he got a new contract. Props to him. That's what being exciting will do. He's a tough guy. Tim Elliott. It's a difference between being tough and entertaining and actually winning the fight. And I feel like, Tim Elliott's not very good at winning the fight. I know he's good at, putting on the show and being tough and showing his heart. It's just, I don't see what much change after that last fight, man. I mean, just look at, he had the ACL surgery, he fights Figueiredo, gets finished in the first round, no shame. Figueiredo's, arguably the champ, or, about to be the champ, whatever. Then you got his fight with was it Askarov? He almost gets knocked out unconscious in the first round. That was like the first time he, really got cracked to a point where like people were really worried about him. He said he had no recollection. Had some trips, had some big takedowns, but he still lost those rounds on 2 cards. And then the Roy Val fight, who Roy Val's a young kid. People thought the experience was going to be the thing, the takedowns, and Tim Elliott completely gassed out to a point. It was a hell of a pace he put on. I'll give him that. I mean, how many of those takedowns he was chaining together? But at the same time, if you watch Brandon Royval fight, like Brandon Royval, have you ever seen him stuff a takedown? Because I don't think I have. And there's no offense to Royval. My boy Royval's the man, Raw Dog. But I feel like there's a chance that people are giving him too much credit for all those takedowns, man. Royval can't stuff a takedown. That's just facts. But I think that in this fight with Benoit has average takedown defense. Sometimes he stuffs, sometimes he gives them up. But I feel like Benoit, his last fight, I feel like he showed enough to let me know that, man, if this guy touches Tim Elliott's chin at any point in this fight, I will not be shocked if Tim Elliott is unconscious on that mat. I feel like his chin is declining. I feel like anytime Royval even got close to hitting his face, he went to the ground and he just had nothing on the feet. He says he's a little bit hungrier this time, but I've heard this story many times from him, man. I feel like I don't want to say he's just here for fun at this point, but I just feel like, he's a guy that just I don't know. It just, like I said, I just don't think he's gonna win. I feel like he's gonna put on a good show. Yeah, I feel like it's gonna be one of those things. I feel like Benoit's the hungrier guy. Even though Elliott got a new contract, I feel like that kind of just gave him more security to keep doing what he's doing. But I feel like Benoit needs this win. And I feel like he had a good showing against Alateng Ali. I'm not going to say he won because Alateng did get a lot of takedowns in the third round. But the first 2 rounds, man, I liked what I saw. And I was at 135. And, man, the way him and Alateng Ali were, hitting in that pocket, man, I was like, damn, these are fight-ending type of blows, man. I just knew that, man, if Elliott took those type of things, I feel like Elliott's going to have the cardio. And he doesn't have the jiu-jitsu to hold these guys down. I know he's got the takedowns and the trips and the funky little, ways to get guys down, but he doesn't hold guys down unless it's like Mark De La Rosa or, somebody like that. But so I'm going to go with Benoit here for the win. I think he actually knocks Tim Elliott out somewhere late second, early third round. Elliott probably does take him down. I mean, probably more than likely takes him down in the early stages, but I don't think he can hold him down, and I think Benoit gets a knockout.
Yeah, look, Tim Elliott's got a lot of fans that'll make a lot of cases for him. And I mean, look, I'm a fan too. I remember watching this guy fight Jared Papazian on my phone on Fight Pass and back in the day. And he's exciting as hell. I like him. It's just that at the betting window, he cannot be trusted. And it's funny, you try to make excuses for his opponents, like Askar Askarov, going into that fight, it was like, man, Askar Askarov gets taken down every fight. He's known for getting, subs off his back and this and that. Like, I was like, man, I'd bet Askarov, he just gets taken down too much. And he got taken down 3 times in 1 round, and 2 of the judges still scored that round for Askarov. So it's like, it didn't even matter that Askarov fucks around off his back too much. Next fight against Royval, I bet Royval at dog odds, but I was like, I know Royval gets taken down a lot. It's just that, I said the same shit about Askarov and it didn't matter. Well, it didn't matter against Royval. He still found a way to win. And here against, Benoit, I know Benoit gets taken down a few times too, but it's probably not going to matter because when they get back up, he hits so damn hard. One thing we've been saying for a long time, you remember back in the day, Shaq, when it used to be John Moraga and Ryan Benoit. Those were the 2 hardest hitters at flyweight, man. And, John Moraga no longer with the company. Shout out to my boy Chicano John, but now it's Ryan Benoit and Davison Figueiredo. They're the 2 hardest hitters at 125 pounds. And I like what I heard from Ryan Benoit. He feels like he needs to evolve. He feels like, hey, I'm going to work on my jiu-jitsu with Gary Tonin and all those guys. I'm going to travel to New York. Like that's the sign of someone that wants to improve. Whereas with Tim Elliott, I heard his interview and he was like, I got outside my comfort zone. I'm sleeping on couches again. So when I heard I'm sleeping on couches again, I was like, damn, okay, Tim Elliott, hey, he's into this. And then the reporter kind of dug a little deeper, and the reporter was like, but didn't you just say you're at an Airbnb with your wife? And so Tim Elliott's like, yeah, the mattress, the sleeping on couches is a metaphor. I was like, oh, so he's not really sleeping on couches. He
Bro, let's just be honest here. Him and Gina are here for a vacation, bro.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. And, look, I hope they get fight of the night, but I think Ryan Benoit's coming out here with a vicious knockout. So I'm going to go with Ryan Benoit to get this one done. Main event of the evening in the featherweight division, we got an absolutely epic showdown between Calvin, the Boston finisher Kattar, he's 21-4, and Dan 50K Ige is 14-2. Currently, they got Calvin Kattar minus 280. The comeback on Dan Ige is plus 240. Shaq, it's interesting because initially when I saw this line, I was like, look, I lean Calvin, but you give me a plus 250 on a guy like Dan Ige that I might want to take the shot. But then I put on the tape and I was like, oh, so that's why.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, dude, you see a plus 250 or with a top 10 guy. I was like, hey, let's relax. Let's not disrespect Ige.
Yeah.
But then
I don't know if he ain't no top 10 guy. Let's relax on that.
But then you put on the tape and you're like, oh, so that's why Calvin's a 3-1 favorite in this spot. And look, as far as Ige's last performance against Barboza live, I thought it was kind of a robbery. I watched it last night. It was close. All comes down to how you score that second round. I kind of low-key think that Ige might have did enough because, Ige won 4 minutes of that second round. Edson had one little moment at the end, but it might have been too little too late. Third round was clear Ige. First round, clear Barboza. So all comes down to how you score that second round, but it's definitely not the robbery of the year like people are saying. That's for sure upon second rewatch. And I bet Barboza there, and it is what it is. You move on. But in this spot, and also, I was under the impression that Calvin didn't look that good against Jeremy. Then I rewatched that, and he looked fucking great versus Jeremy. Like, he literally weathered Jeremy's storm, no problem. And when it was his turn to deliver the offense, I mean, he was rocking Jeremy at the end of the first round. And then by the time the second round rolled around, he made Jeremy switch stances with kicks of his own. So, look, I think Ige's going to come out here hard. He might land some shots early, maybe some leg kicks, maybe even a takedown. But the longer this fight goes, I mean, Shaq, me and you have been saying we want to see Calvin Kattar in a 5-round fight for the longest time because, he might be a bit of a slow starter. I feel like if he had 2 more rounds against Zabit, he might have won that fight. Here he's got the full 5 rounds to work. So I'm going to go with Calvin Kattar to finish the very, very tough Hawaiian Dan Ige. And I think that Calvin Kattar might be 1 or 2 fights away from that elusive UFC title shot.
Yeah, man, I feel like Dan Ige's made a lot of good improvements since his first UFC fight. And I do think that he's a ranked guy. And like you said, initially you thought but after I watched it again, it definitely wasn't a robbery. Ige fought tough, did win the majority of that second. Edson had low output. Edson was getting bruised up from the very beginning, and Edson is just not in a physical condition to be in fights on that level anymore, I guess. So props to Dan Ige for exposing that. But when we talk about Calvin Kattar, this is a whole different ball game now, man. This probably is the best boxer in the featherweight division. I know Zabit, touched him up a little bit, but we need to see 2 more rounds in that fight, man. To make it fair. But nah, I feel like Calvin Kattar, Ige, his style he has 2 different versions. It's either come out here and let's try to rush him early and get a submission, rock him with a big punch, hop around to his back and get the sub, or it's the same, let me dominate him the first round, take off the second, and look to come back in the third when I'm rested. But, his last fight, I will say that was the best he ever looked. And, I just feel like Calvin Kattar, when you got a guy like him standing in front of you, and you have these moments like Ige where you do get dropped, like when Edson Barboza takes off, 3-4 minutes of the round, and then his one little explosion, boom, puts you on your ass. Calvin Kattar isn't going to be taking breaks off, man. He's going to be pumping those jabs and feigning those 1-2s the entire time. And if you're not on point, Calvin takes heads completely off, man. So I think that Calvin Kattar is going to take another head off on Wednesday night. Unfortunately, I feel like Dan Ige still is on the ups. I just feel like now is where his run comes to an end. I feel like Calvin's had a similar fights like this before as well. Jeremy Stephens, that's, a guy that's looking to rush you and bomb off on you. And I feel like he poses more of a threat, in terms of going unconscious than Dan Ige does. I feel like Ige, might play this like Fishy did, might try to rest a little bit. And if he does get the takedown, that's only going to tire him out for rounds 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I got Calvin by knockout, at some point in this fight. And I think that he's going to move on and put himself, in that top 5, maybe fight Zombies fighting Ortega. Maybe Emmett's injured. Damn. I don't know who he's going to fight after this, but, I think Calvin knocks Dan Ige out.
Well, Shaq, now we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. So what is the fight to watch for UFC Fight Island?
My fight to watch is going to be Ricardo Ramos versus Lerone Murphy. I want to see how Lerone Murphy looks in the second time out to see, because I mean, look, the UFC is already throwing him in there with the big boys, already. So I want to see what the deal is, if he really is, able to fight with these guys. And Ramos, 24 years old, if he can get another victory, then he just moves on and he keeps showing that he's improving in his new weight class.
Yeah, look, for me, my fight to watch is Abdul Razak Alhassan versus Mounir Lazzez. There is no chance in hell that this fight is going to be boring. These two are going to be bombing off on each other until one man goes to sleep, and I have a feeling one man will go to sleep. Someone should be walking away with a 50K bonus. I actually might have to take that back because Razak did miss weight, so maybe not. But regardless of that, it's going to be on a UFC highlight reel for years to come. So my fight to watch is Razak Alhassan versus Mounir Lazzez. Shaq, who is your fighter to watch for Wednesday's fight night?
My fighter to watch is gonna be Meatball Molly McCann, man. I'm super excited for in this fight with Santos, and we don't have too many female fighters from the UK, so we know that she's representing, and man, I feel like she can carry the torch for that region for a long time if she comes out here and gets the win. So she's my fighter to watch.
My fighter to watch is Calvin Kattar. Look, this is a guy that for the longest time we've wanted to see him in these 5-round fights. Now he finally does have a 5-round fight live on ESPN. This is massive. I mean, if he can come out here and not just win, but win impressively, we could be looking at him fighting Alexander Volkanovski for the UFC featherweight title next. So for that reason, Calvin Kattar is my fighter to watch. Well, Shaq, we did it. It's going down Wednesday night in Yas Island, Abu Dhabi, Fight Island. They can get our plays at bestfightpicks.com. Use the promo codes Dan25 for 25% off my plays, Shaq50 for 50% off Shaq's, 2020 for 20% off the VIPs. Make sure you follow Shaq at MMA Genius 05. Follow me at Best Fight Picks, bestfightpicks.com. Subscribe to Half the Battle on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, Spotify. All the places where we are available. We will be back on Thursday to break down the Davison Figueiredo versus Joseph Benavidez fight, or the Pantoja versus Benavidez fight, whichever one they do. We'll be ready to talk about both fights and the entire card. So until the next time, let's cash these bets.